This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon everybody. Welcome to Juma Private Game Reserve here in Sabisand with looks like a single bull elephant in a shade but feeding. See, we're also actually sitting right in the open, which is actually warmer today. And welcome aboard to your very own safari through the African bush. Good afternoon again everybody. We got now single bull elephant, which looks like it could be more around here, but for now looks like just a young bull elephant. It's amazing actually. He goes shadow to shadow and then he actually spent time there taking as much grass as needed. Well, they don't have choice, they have to get mobile even though it's hot, so for them to sustain their body this time of the day. And my name is Andrew, and on camera I have Simon again this afternoon. So we decided to actually take these directions, hoping to see if we could find any of animals that, you know, sometimes they're in shadow or sometimes they can be mobile, where it is actually indeed hot already out here. So our temperature for today is 33 degrees Celsius and 92 Fahrenheit. Of course, chance of rain is really percent, which I don't think it's going to rain any soon. It's always amazing to begin with the elephant and just to see if they are still mobile and then what they do. Well, this is actually to tell us that, you know, most of animals, those don't mind about heat. They can still get mobile. Those that mind too much about the heat, then they'll be in a shade. Take it easy, but I can tell you what, the elephants, they don't have much time to be static for a long time. So remember to talk to us. We're coming to you live from these few locations in Africa, and you can use under the age, still use kids questions at wildearth.tv, as well as at Twitter, #WildEarth, and YouTube channel at FC, and also wildearth.tv/an explorer. Then you will be able to communicate with us from there as we take you to safari life. I'm just going to actually move forward. Looks like there's more elephants in the wood, but we'll find out if there is more where the young male is going right now. And if there is more, then that wouldn't surprise me. Then it will be actually all scattered around. Josh, so he's saying the elephant hibernate. No, they don't hibernate. So those are hibernate. There are probably, these are small animals like, you know, tortoises, some frogs, those beetles sometimes. But with the elephants, no. Even though they're, you know, able to hold or stand their chances in this heat throughout the year when it's colder, but they're still mobile, so they don't hibernate. Looks like I got a visual of more here, which is actually very interesting. Now we're going down to a slightly in a deeper bit, where there, now this is a whole herd. I think we can't see all of them, but I've already seen like 7 of animals in this wood. So this is actually how they all spread around. He found actually they were in an open area or they've been in the water. When I look at that female here with her baby, it looks like some other part of her body, it's wet a little bit. And this is where when they go here, all places is still a puddle of mud. Well, it's drying out. Not a permanent water hole. These are natural pens, but they're able to play in that and then splash, spray mud over their body. So the trunk is very important for these animals. So they use trunk in that how they were able to feed. The trunk can actually able to get hold of very small leaves and these. If you look at that tree there, it's one of these Platiforum africana. Actually, it's a weeping wattle or toilet paper bush, where you see a lot of a flower in there. I think those will be also taken at the same time, elephant to eat them. Leaves would be taken from that tree. And the baby needed a shelter, where you see the baby's also under the mother's head, where there's a lot of a shadow in there. Rosalind. So you're asking how good is an elephant eyesight? Well, it's not a very stronger like most other animals like antelopes. Ooh, somebody's starting trouble out there. It's probably one of those young male that was there. It's probably not accepted in his group. Still better than minus eyesight. So it's actually not that great, but it's better that they can see if it's a white kind of object from distances. Anything from 300 meters, 400 meters, they can still pick it up. But then if you wear like khaki, these camouflage, then from there they'll probably struggle a little bit to see. Probably see it's kind of silhouette, but not knowing what it is. So they rely on sense of smell quite a lot. But also they can still see at night during that forage because they move day and the night. They were looking at one of the young one. So it looks like I'm gonna see if we're gonna find, I'm not sure, I'm gonna go through here, see if they're allowing us to do that, they don't run away. So I'm gonna be sending you to Mike within an elephant.
Well, whilst Andrew finds the rest of his herd of elephants, we are going to find the rest of this one as well. There's just one elephant here, feeding gently on the grass here at Zebra Clearings, not so far from the eco-training camp. Looking very relaxed on this very hot day. It's quite warm. It's like 33 degrees, which is about 91 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's very warm. Hi everyone, I'm Mike Anderson. Behind the camera is Gert, and you've joined us here at Eco-Training's Pride Lands Conservancy, where we're not going to go very far today. I think we're going to stick close to the water because, as you can see, it's very hot. I'm already got a little bit of a sweat on, and this elephant's already been mud wallowing because it's so warm. It started its New Year's party early. Pool. So it's probably going to go and drink once it's finished feeding. It's just had a mud wallow, which means it's feeling nice and cool right now. Once it's finished feeding, I'm sure it'll head over to a waterhole somewhere so that it can quench its thirst after all this grass that it feeds on. They constantly eat all the time, so they need plenty of water to wash it all down. You can see it's flapping its ears frequently because of that warm weather. And look at all the dragonflies that are flying about. Now, it's actually the first time I've seen so many dragonflies moving about. And there is this incredible humidity, so I wonder if it's actually bringing an influx of insects, which is what these dragonflies will be hunting too. And they'll be following around this elephant, because as it feeds in the grass, it will be disturbing all sorts of little things the dragonflies can then catch. Very clever technique. Andrea, elephants' tusks are teeth. Just like our teeth are embedded in our skull or in the jaw, the elephant's tusks are actually modified incisors, which are those front teeth of ours. And so they are technically part of the skull. They're connected to the skull directly, but they're teeth. It's got molars in its mouth, which it's using to crunch the grass. The tusks are more for defense and as tools for various tasks, like digging the mud up to loosen mud. Like this one has its tusks are covered in mud. It probably used its tusks to dig in the dirt a little bit to loosen it up so it can have more mud. For getting bark off the side of trees, for pushing and shoving against other elephants, and also defending themselves against potential predators. Not that there are many predators for elephants, but this elephant is not very large. It's a young male. So there, I guess in certain areas in Africa, big prides of lions have become quite adept at chasing down these elephants that are about this size and catching them. I very much doubt danger at all, because there's not too many lions that we've seen over the last couple of days in this part of Pride Lands. A young male, but he seems to have moved off. Well, it seems like Andrew's found those elephants, so let's send you back to him to have a look.
Thanks, Mike. So we actually try and reposition here, where we're able to get close to these elephants. Like I said, we can't, see all of them because they're all scattered all over, and many of them that I can hear, they're already in a drainage line system inside, where it's a lot of it cooler. And this one, they might actually do the same. So again, she's gone after this whipping wattle, breaking the branches. Sometimes they can even peel bark of that tree, feed on the Combio malaya, which is more juicy, tasty as well. You find in a river there is a sand, very soft sand, where the water is not actually sank down yet. Elephants, they're well known of making their own watering hole inside the river, where that water comes out so fresh, even though they play with sand, doesn't actually get dirty. That's what they love is most, to be in the river. This one doesn't want to get out of the thicket. But once it's actually cool off, and this is where they're gonna do their normal activity, switch place to another, but that's the matriarch. It's duty to control them, to lead them where they have to go. They have to follow her though. They don't move far. It means that when she's stationary, they have to be in the area for several hours. Well, they're so big animal, for sure they need to get their special diet, which is most grasses out here available under these trees. Remember, we're actually in Lawfield, so many of these grasses are buffalo grass mixed with other grasses, such as the finger grasses and those seed hard grasses as well. And you find so much sweet when they mix them, feed on them. She's gonna come out. Dogweed. So you want to know the secretion on females. So what happened, African elephants, females and the male, they have a temporal gland, which is what's sweating there. It's called temporina secretion. And then it could be sometimes on the females, means stress when there's so much heat take places, and they'll sweat those one, even the young one as well. Not only the bigger one do that. So it applies to the young one, females and the young males, they can sweat those one. But if it's a male, then, or the female should come on estrus as well. She would sweat those. And the male also, these dominant bulls out there, when they sweat those one, and when they're also on mast, which that is to indicate, but also that punching smell come out of the penile shift, dripping of the urine, which is stink. And wherever that male goes, would actually, be scent left behind, a trail as they're dripping going on as he moves. And those female around are able to notice that he was around. As a human, we know exactly what it smells like. We know it's got to be a male on mast around here. So we'll stick with this one right in the open there. Not open, but the rest, we can't see them right now. But I just heard a kind of a growl. Which is maybe how they're going to communicate and move that way across the river. Maybe they will disappear from us. And I'm going to be sending you over to Lauren with the elephant.
Good afternoon to an extremely hot day here in Buffelshoek. We've left Djuma and we have in fact came up to Buffelshoek. We're going to go around all the dams here to see what we can find. My name is Lauren and I do have Davy on camera once again. Yes, that is his thumb. And we've not been quite as lucky as Andrew. We've only found one lone bull in a sort of open area here. And he's clearly been to water at some point fairly recently. And he's feeding on the wonderful long grass here. Now, I mentioned yesterday that a recent study just from September 2020 really sort of went a little bit deeper into the role of older males. They tend to get discarded, if you like, and previously, long ago in the sort of hunting industry, they were thought to be almost redundant, past their reproductive peak, and, well, easy targets, shall we say. But no more. They are not redundant. They're actually in their prime. The older they get, they sire the most offspring, the older they get, and they're definitely at a reproductive peak. Not only that, they play vital roles in the social life of elephant males. They have a fundamental role just like that of a matriarch, but for small bachelor herds. So you will find boys like this off on their own, just living a bit of a nomadic life. But those older bulls, those gentlemen that are above 40 plus, those that have lived, those that have experienced, those that have all that knowledge, environmental knowledge, cultural knowledge, they can control their hormones, they can control their state of must, that temporary madness you get, even when their temporal glands swell, which is most likely incredibly painful for them, they're able to handle it a lot better. And they play a key role in elephant societies in helping to guide the younger males. And that actually makes so much more sense. How does a young male who's just been ousted, testosterone is pumping through his veins, he doesn't know how to handle it, his temporal glands are swollen, he's got a swagger, things are happening to his body that he maybe doesn't understand. He's lost his herd, they told him to go. Not verbally, obviously, but there'll have been signs of the females pushing the male out. He may join up with other youngsters, young Askaris, and they just sort of have a bit of fun for a while. But then how does a male grow up to be a gentleman, to understand how to navigate the landscape? And that knowledge comes from the older bulls. And it's just fascinating. So much research goes into the matriarch of elephant societies because, of course, she's also key. She's such an important figure in the survival of elephants. But so are the elephant bulls, the older ones. Those ones that you just feel their gentle energy, their calmness. It's normally the younger bulls that you have a little bit of trouble with. They're just trying to learn how to be a hormonal male elephant. It can't be easy. Without your herd, without the protection of your herd, without your mama, definitely can't be easy. But they don't form tight herds, if that makes sense. So like the matriarch has her breeding herd, that's not the case for the older bulls. They will just meet young bulls on their journey, take them on board and help pass on that knowledge. And then again, they may separate. The older bulls will then come across more younger bulls. So I'm going to begin my journey to all the dams around Buffelshoek. We're going to send you across to Andrew, who has a kingfisher.
Thanks, Lorraine. So our woodland kingfisher decided to fly off while we're sitting also in a shade over here. Like I said, you know, this drainage line system, it seems to be still very wet. So most of all insect, which is still hunted by birds, you know, those type. And some birds are more likely to follow the game. There's drongos, which also associate with any other animals to benefit getting their insect, which is disturbed by the animal. So it's cool that we still have a few of these herds, but you know, we can have a visual now of them. They're already on the far side of this drainage line system, where I believe that communication we heard, it was all about getting together so that they will move maybe that direction, because now they're facing west if they have to move away from this drainage line system. There's still lowering communication happening there, so they're still trying to figure out where the rest of the herd, because that seems to be all over, and they will respond to that frequency they would receive from that particular animal. Remember, they love one another in the herd, all take care of one another. Those cannot make it is not left behind. We get support from those healthy and get in the same herd and move with them. It's greeny out there. So I'm gonna leave this herd here, search for probably around the watering hole, see if we find anything else. I'm gonna be sending you over to Mike with an elephant.
So our elephant is also having a great time feeding on the vegetation. In fact, where it's standing right now is basically almost exactly where our vehicle was parked when we first were watching the elephant. It walked directly over to us and patiently sort of waited for us and started feeding behind our vehicle. So we decided to give it space because we were in the shade there, and I thought maybe it would want to go to the shade to feed on some of the grass whilst also being in the shade. Very patient elephant. I wonder what its background is, what's its story, because some elephants, especially at that age, it's quite young, would be quite rowdy and want to show off their size and throw their head around and shake and trumpet to get a vehicle to move. But this elephant came right up to us and just very gently sort of smelt at us and listened. It was amazing. Now you can watch it at a distance as it pulls at the grass. Every now and again it'll pull up a whole clump of grass, including the roots. It will try and shake off the dirt on the roots. Don't want to eat too much. Actually, it keeps dropping the grass out of its mouth. I wonder why. Maybe it sort of puts it in there and then realizes that it's not that tasty. Buffet, it can happen in many ways. As elephants get older, of course, the longer they live, a long time, 40, 50 years sometimes. And as they move through the vegetation, if they live in a very thick environment, their ears get caught on thorn trees and all sorts of stuff. And that can cause them to be ripped and torn. Now, it can also happen in fights when they're jousting with each other or pushing each other. They can sometimes scratch or hurt themselves or each other. And then, of course, biting insects, ticks and fleas and biting flies can, over time, slowly wear away at the blood vessels, which causes the edge of the ear to sort of atrophy in a way, and just sort of pieces fall off the edge. There's not too many nerve endings in there, so it won't necessarily feel it too easily on the tips of its ears. So a young elephant like this, its ears are pretty much fully intact. I don't think this elephant is much older than about 20, if even that. It's quite short. But, an elephant that's, let's say, 40 or 50 years old, you'll see their ears will often have big tears in them, sometimes even be broken and flopping down. We saw an elephant day before yesterday which had its whole right ear was just hanging limp down, and it obviously broken the cartilage that joins the ear to the skull. And so it was just hanging down, which in itself won't be a major problem for the elephant. It just won't be able to flap its ears easily to cool down. So as long as it can get in water regularly and use the shade, it should be okay. It's often how we age many animals, or not really age them, but at least know if they're young or old. Especially on leopards and lions and things, you'll often see their ears very tatty as they get older. Suzanne, that's a good question, and I don't think that they can, predict it in the way we think of it, but they certainly feel pressure changes differently than we do. They feel environmental change, and so I think they can have an idea that there's weather coming. And of course they've got incredible hearing and sense of smell too, so they could smell rain from a lot further away, and they can hear the rolling thunder from much, much further than we can, and so they'll know about things much before we do. There's that old saying that if you see tortoises going uphill in the Lowveld, that it's likely that there'll be flooding happening soon. So, take care And it actually happens quite frequently that when we see lots of tortoises, soon after that we get some heavy rain. So there's got to be some truth to it. There's got to be some evolutionary or adaptive, something that's happened over time that's allowed them to be able to sense approaching weather. Even plants can feel these things just by knowing how many hours of sunlight they're getting, the moisture content, the humidity. Plants will know to start flowering or putting out seeds. It's really, really quite amazing how everything in nature is intertwined in this great web of communication, and it's mind-boggling actually how everything just works together. Ecology, the study of all the interactions between living things and the non-living environment. I think so. I think there are lots of elephants all over. We've luckily got them there at Djuma. We've got them here as well. I'm sure Ngala at some point this afternoon is going to find lots of elephants too. It's such a hot day. Some of those water holes are going to be pumping with elephants. It really is an elephant new year. What is it, year of the elephant? It just shakes his head. Not interested in my nonsense. Well, certainly very hot, and I'm sure that this elephant is very shortly going to be heading to a waterhole, which is, I think, what we're also going to do, because sitting in this open clearing has got me thirsty. I hope it's got this elephant thirsty too. It's been mud wallowing in that exact pool where all the bullfrogs were. Remember when we saw those bullfrogs about a week ago now, having their wrestling match? This elephant was mud wallowing right in that pool. I wonder if any of those bullfrogs are still there or if they've moved off. I suppose it's probably time for them to have dispersed. They would have laid their eggs by now. 1 or 2 males will probably still be in that pond, protecting any tadpoles that are hatching. But the rest of the males will have dispersed off and found places to bury themselves and wait for the next rains. See those plants that are just in front of that elephant? A few days ago, we watched an elephant female walk up to these plants. These are called datura, and they're very toxic to many animals, and they're not native. They're an invasive species, and in fact we want to pull them out and destroy them as much as we can. And this elephant female went and wrapped its trunk around one of these plants, pulled it up, and threw it down. And I thought nothing of it. But then she went and pulled up 3 or 4 times these plants and threw them down. Now, it's probably just coincidental that she was looking for something to eat and she just kept pulling the wrong thing up. But it almost looked like she was trying to get rid of it, because they've got a great sense of smell. So they can certainly tell if something is good or bad. And so it might be that she was smelling that plant and realizing that it's toxic and bad. And so she was pulling it out and throwing it down. It was really interesting behavior to watch. And I really wonder what was going through the head of that elephant. That stuff has very beautiful flowers, but it's called a thorn apple. Sometimes in English they call it a thorn apple, or in Afrikaans a malpitta, because the seeds are very toxic, and if you eat them, you'll go a little bit crazy, like this elephant is crazy, standing in the sun all by itself.
Thanks, Mike. It's probably true that. So what we got here, it's very interesting antelope. That, we got a male nyala, but it looks like also female around here. And these antelope female, they're a lot different looking color compared to the male, where male has got a very dark, grey dark, and with a vertical stripe still there available. And then the female also, they would have white stripe. And then just going to see if I'll reposition here, because there's more of them in there. other side. Just gonna see if they'll stick with us a bit more. And they're one of the species that they always in the group. So female, they get around so much, same, but also on males. Those or sometimes you find 7 male together. It's just like kudu kind of behavior where they are not strictly territorial. So you see he's just right behind them. It means at the moment he's only the dominant male. So they tend to breed all year round most. But, you know, they would browse, they would eat grass, so they're kind of a mixed feeder animal. They take, you know, these dry pods when it's winter, flowers. And this is actually moving technique they have. They don't move like most other animals like impala, because impala, they can be found in the open, where these they spend a lot of time in the wood, so they move carefully. When it moves, they move very smooth. Suzanne, you saying they're aggressive? No, they're not aggressive. The female most. The male, if you maybe cornered them, then yes, they're very strong, this sharpening horn. They can really stab you, probably to death though. But from just approaching from the distance, they were just going to move off. They have a very interesting tail, which is fluffy like a sheep tail. And this is when they have to use this tail to get off all flies, most parasite. Remember, they also ruminate, so they are herbivores, animal species. Looks like they're not sticking with us, they actually keep moving on. And we're just gonna still have a visual of that male. See how he's got a very ridge under the throat. So I'm gonna leave them in peace, do their forage. While I'm checking around here, let me send you over to Nikki.
So a warm welcome to and Beyond Ngala, and we're so lucky that earlier on Rowan, so one of our presenters on Wild Earth, found a lion. And before I show him, I just want to introduce myself. So I'm Nikki here at and Beyond Ngala, and with me on the camera is BK. So just to show you here in the tall grass, as we were driving past, there's actually a lion flat in the shade. Now, often with lions, they are pretty lazy animals, and a male like this can sleep for at least 20 hours a day before he starts moving again. But imagine how hard that would be if you are driving past the area trying to spot this lion. And look at how he's panting. Do you see, like from his back leg, how his tummy's moving the whole time? And with the heat, because today is a really warm day, as he's just trying to pant and just cooling himself down. Now, for some of our viewers that have been viewing the show for quite some time now, so this is one of the members of the Birmingham Pride known as the Ross male. And I don't know if it's the one with the lighter colour mane or maybe the darker coloured, but if we spend some time here, who knows, maybe he might just lift his head in order to snap at a fly or maybe to see what's going around him. But for now, still very relaxed. Since we've been here, he's not picked up his head at all. So basically, like, just to make the viewer see what we're looking at now. So this is the back part of the lion. So you can imagine his back legs towards the tail. The rest of the head is actually more to the right, but you can't even see that because of the tall grass. But there we might see an ear. If you look through the grass, just have a look at that. You can see just twitching because of the flies. But panting very heavily. So Beacon and I also, we had a bit of a chat to discuss if we're going to stay here for too long or maybe just give it a bit of time. And then age 7, lions can sleep quite a bit of the day. It all depends on if it's overcast or maybe if it's a warm day or cool day, if it's raining. But in general, lions are pretty lazy. And as we mentioned a bit earlier on, they can sleep up to 20 hours in a day. I mean, it's a long time for a lion, but there's no way this one has to be in particular. So what he's probably doing is, we had a bit of rain recently, and all his scent, or his brother's scent, probably washed off some of the vegetation. So one of the ways that the male lion will tell another male lion that this is his area is if he goes and he urinates against the vegetation, or even if he roars. And so this one is separated from the pride because he's probably just patrolling his area, making sure there's no other males trying to move in closer to the pride and pushing any other young male out of the area. There's a little bird at the back calling. You just hear this squeaking sound like a ch-ch-ch-ch-ch-ch. It's called a rattling testicula. And often birds can, like for example, we're looking at this lion, and often birds can give a predator's position away, because imagine now this male lion had to move through the bush and suddenly he disturbs quite a bit of birds, or maybe like something like a guinea fowl or even a francolin. And as soon as you hear that, you know, okay, maybe there is a predator in the area, let's go and investigate. And it's been quite remarkable the amount of times we've been able to find a predator because of that. Or even here in the back, there's a dove that says, it's called a ring-necked dove. The old name was called a Cape turtle dove. But I can't imagine him to go anywhere. What I would love to do is maybe later on we can always come back and see if he moves, or maybe even starts roaring later on in the evening. But for now, let's head across to Andrew.
Good luck, Nikki. So we're also checking around here. We're gonna check a few water holes to see if there's any activity there. If not, then we're gonna do something else, maybe check for something else. Maybe later it's gonna be something that is happening close to the water hole, where most animals, they would be probably thirsty if those of them haven't drank out there in one of these pens, small pens. But the waters in these small pens tend to be very much warmer already, where they are so small and they're small pens. So where in a bigger lake, the water tends to be very cooler because it's amount of water there. So I believe they would be probably wanting to drink once it's slightly cooled off. But also to find out if it's anything that moves during the day into the area where animals that move. We've seen that leopard was moving in that heat of a day yesterday, just beginning of a drive. So this is also one of the indication that tells us leopards or lions that can be in the area without you knowing that they're in the area. Because of their movement they do, So let's find out. Gonna be sending you over to JP.
Good afternoon and welcome to Tswalu. I'm currently sitting here at the edge of the Koronaberg Mountains and looking at a very interesting plant which is known as a hoodia, which I'm going to tell you about shortly. And my name is JP LaRue, and behind the camera we've got Greg. So the plant that we found over here is actually known as a chab in this area, and then some people refer to them as hoodias. They're a member of a Asclepia family or milkweed family. We also find that the plant itself is quite interesting, that it's often used by shepherds and a number of hunter-gatherers as an appetite suppressant. So what we also find with the flowers of this plant, unlike typical plants which reward their pollinators by means of nectar, these will produce a flower that looks like carrion and also smells like carrion. Therefore will be pollinated by species such as flies. Other plant species that we have over here is one of the croton species, which is also known as a feverberry. This one is known as a lavender feverberry, and quite often this is used for the purpose of treating fevers, and it's made into a tea that is then drunk. One of the common uses is quite often for malarial fever. However, it's also dried, and the powdered form is often mixed with fat, and then that's rubbed onto the bodies of hunter-gatherers and people that would use it as a perfume. The other purpose for this is that the dry pieces of branches is often put between laundry to make it smell pleasant.
Have you been watching Wild Earth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. Wild Earth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live Wild Earth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at and Beyond Pinda Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
This is Rusty. He's my favorite vehicle and we've been through all the good times here in the bush. Now, if you feel a connection to Djuma Game Reserve like I do, then we have a fantastic opportunity for you. You can have your name engraved on a brushed metal plaque just like this one, and we will attach it to Rusty so you can always be with us on safari in spirit. We will even send you a digital photograph once your plaque is mounted on Rusty. Spaces are limited, so grab your spot now.
Hello, boy. You are a monster. And he's coming right up to us. Hello, boy. Oh, settle down. Settle down. He is very, very close. He's pushing his trunk against the car. You can feel the car moving. Hey, 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 hey. Stop that.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Welcome back to Tswalu. We're currently still sitting with the hoodia that we've been looking at earlier and just enjoying the view on the Koronaberg Mountains and watching the storm that's brewing up in the south and the north of us. Good afternoon, Tom, and welcome to the show. They're generally not a very common species, and I suspect that they were most likely collected in the past outside conservation areas, and that's maybe one of the reasons why very few of them only exist in conservation areas. And then they're also quite often collected for ornamental purposes, where they'll be planted in gardens. Good afternoon, Moondust. I would put the height approximately 1,100 to 1,400 meters in altitude. So we're still slightly lower than Johannesburg. The mountains consist out of a quartzite, which is quite a hard, resilient rock type. So with quartzite, this was originally a sedimentary deposit, and eventually this was compacted, and through a number of different processes, it was subjected to either heat or gravity. But one of the things that we find is that it never gets molten, but because of the gravity, it actually altered the chemical composition of these rocks, making it an incredibly hard and resilient rock type. Once again, the mountain's name itself is Koranenberg. Koranenberg has received the name from the Korana people, who were a group of people that were herders that moved in this area a few hundred years ago. They were also very closely related to the San, and are quite often referred to as a Khoisan. Good afternoon, Susan, and welcome to the show. It's quite often a difficult question to answer. However, it changes from season to season. One of my favorite trees will always remain a camel thorn acacia, and then also the shepherd's tree is another favorite tree. In terms of flowers, the Aandblommetjie, which we looked at a few days ago, which is also known as a spider lily, is one of my favorites. And then definitely the flower of the tumbleweed, which is also known as a bushman's poison, is another favorite. At the moment, one of my other favorite trees in the area is the Brandy Bush, because quite a few of them has actually got ripe fruits on them. So both myself and Craig has been indulging on these on regular stops next to the side of the road. I do also like the Hoodia because it's quite an interesting plant, and it differs from many other plant species in the fact that it's been pollinated by flies instead of butterflies and bees and wasps. Good afternoon, Time Walker, and welcome to the show. I doubt that the iron will be transferred to the animals because it's already oxidized, and that's what's provided the red coloration to the soil. And if it does go anywhere, it will most likely go into a plant, and I doubt that it will be carried over from there. These These red swirls definitely add to the beauty of the Kalahari, especially in the winter months when this beautiful luscious green grasses turn into a copper wheat color, combined with the bright blue coloration of the sky, which is so crisp and clear. There's also a number of different animal species that has adapted to these red swirls, and it's only found in the red swirls of the Kalahari. One of these is known as the Moro Mole Rat. Other interesting adaptation we see with slender mongoose in this area is that they've obtained a red-brown coloration to blend in with the soil. A number of the bird species, such as larks, also has adapted to the coloration. In the meanwhile, we're going to hand you over to Andrew.
Thanks, JP. What we got down there, right up in this dry tree or wood, it's actually a very interesting bird, beautiful bird around here with a Lollipressed Roller. And it looks like it's got probably a young one around here. I just saw it flying down there and the young one fly off from that very same position. And this is the time for this bird's type to have their young one around with them, which is probably the noise that we can hear on the background, but it's a very small sound. But now it's probably starting also to make sound. It's checking around. It's one of the magnificent colored bird around here, a Lollipressed Roller. And they stay all year round. They don't really migrate out here. But this is actually fully growing. And they're actually doing their best of hunting while it's still a day light. Since it looks like it's got a young one, it's actually able to teach the young one, also hunting for the young one, grasshoppers, most insects. And the young one were able to gain a skill, usually between a hash. If there's success in that incubation. Jade, indeed you're right. It's actually such an amazing bird. These type of birds are one of the, well, remember all rollers are actually named after they, due to the way they're doing in terms of displaying their god. Special, beautiful, more especially male, they do that. Display for their mate, which is their females most when they do that. And when they do that, they fly up high enough, but with that kind of a rattle sound. So I'm going to be driving in here between them. We don't actually not there yet to check what is in there. I'm going to be sending you over to Lauren.
Now, the dams have not brought much joy in Buffelshoek so far, but we did look down at the ground and it's very, very busy. May not be the most riveting of stuff, but ants are the enemies of termites. They are not related in any way, shape or form. They look very similar, but termites are actually part of the cockroach family, Blattodea. Ants are not. Wow, so busy. They also have a really unique social structure and a colony. So it's not the same as termites, but they also have a caste system. They're also about the collective. See, it's a very strict social structure that the ants have. And they deal a lot with scent. They're highly chemical. They have lots of chemoreceptors, and they're able to signal to one another and communicate with one another all through scent. Now, it's different to what the termites do, but once one ant, one single individual, gets really lucky with some delicious form of food, whatever that may be, they will leave a trail, a scent trail to that piece of food so that all the other individuals can come and find the delicious delicacy. Now, if it's something that needs to be carried back to their home, then they'll leave a trail in order to get everybody to come, use all that muscle, lots of individuals, and they'll carry it all the way back to their little home. So they're very busy on the ground here, but I can't actually see what they're doing. It doesn't look like they're feeding on anything. And I think that hole that Davi first showed you, that tiny small little hole, seems to be where they're streaming out of. Yes, this is definitely the hubbub. Oh no, that's not the hole, is it? They also secrete formic acid. I didn't catch that name, but you're asking, would they engage in a battle?
Moondust.
Moondust. Well, battle with who is the question. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but they absolutely would battle with termites. They regularly do. But ants are noisy, believe it or not. They're not noisy to us. We, of course, can't hear them. But they're not quiet in their daily movements within the colony, whereas termites are remarkably silent. So they use sort of stealth and silence to stay a secret and work hard and do their own thing when ants are around. So I'm not sure who you were referring to in battle, but they absolutely would battle with others. And as I mentioned, they secrete formic acid. And this can be a real deterrent for any other insect that comes nearby. They're sort of equipped with their own chemical defense. So ants will actually penetrate termite colonies. If they find a colony, if they come across a colony, they will penetrate and definitely kill the termites. Some ants can sting them and paralyze them, release formic acid, and then they can actually take the termites themselves back to their own colony and eat them as food. So they are absolute enemies. But termites are actually remarkably hygienic. They indulge in a lot of grooming. They're not smelly, so sometimes the ants will be completely aware. That mound that I showed you this morning, we could see the termites, but not so far away there was also a lot of ants, and it appeared that the ants had no idea the termites were there. They're not smelly, they don't carry an odor, and they're silent. But if the ants do come across a termite mound, they absolutely will penetrate it and engage in battle. And because they're equipped with so many defenses, normally the ants do win, and they'll kill all the termites and eventually eat them. For being such small, minuscule insects, they're also remarkable. Many different species of ants, and if any of you have ever came across the fire ant, that's definitely not a pleasant species to encounter. Ouch. They have a very painful bite that inflicts quite a wound on a human. And in case you can't already imagine, it feels like fire. It feels like you've just been burnt by something extremely painful. But when the ants leave the colony together and they go to find food, you can actually find them, you can actually call them raiding parties. So as a collective, they'll leave their home, they'll leave their colony to raid in a collective. Many ants together as one will, of course, be quite a force to be reckoned with. And you call them raiding parties. And this can be any sort of group of ants from 2 to 10. And they can create long columns, up to 1 meter long, and this is when they're going to attack. They leave their colony together to attack whatever it is they have in mind. Okay, I think we are going to bumble on to our next dam. Here we go. There's actually a really nice water hole. Maybe we should give you a view. I'll slightly reposition for Darby. It's not a dam, it's just a natural sort of water hole that's collected from all the rains, and it's buzzing with insects. So it doesn't actually have an official name, but it's just another source of water for all the animals out here. There's Davy, there's a dragonfly just landed there. No, that's not a dragonfly, is it? No, I can't see it. Apologies. I think it's mating dragonflies. At 3:30, you see something red down on those grass stalks in the water. Let me see if I can direct you. Yes, they're just sticking out. See that red thing? It's a dragonfly. It's not staying very still, I'm afraid. We didn't get lucky there. But we are going to keep bumbling around Buffelshoek and see what else we can find.
Thank you very much. So we in this position of now a twin dam. Where it looks like there's actually only one individual impala male, far and away distance. That looks like was probably, could be, maybe was a more impala, but it's a typical animal. They're sometimes male. They all separate from the rest of the other group, and they find themselves alone, although they otherwise have to return back to their breeding or bachelor group. Where nevertheless, they're all females now. They all have dropped their babies. There's no right-in season right now. It is already over. But you see how it's alert, because since it's, I think maybe it's more, but especially impala when they're alone, what they do, they have to scan around and making sure it's everything okay, because nobody else helped them to look. Where in the group, it works better that everybody's got to work now. Everybody has to save its own life, or the rest. It's life. It's probably maybe going to come here. Well, it's sitting actually in a shade, do they? So it's probably maybe finally will come to drink here. And then maybe the rest of the others, antelope, those around, because it's coming to in a time where they have to come down. So we're just going to find out what is going to happen. Birds, I'm not going to go anywhere. Sorry about that, Ntswala. Then we're still here in this dam, stationary. I want a dam wall, but there's actually Egyptian geese also here, that they're resting in the middle of this water hole. You see how they're actually positioning themselves there. So one is looking backwards, another one, so each one checking in. One is back. So in case even though they're in the water, you got an eagle that can still get them there and fly off with them. These marshall eagles, which are way too big, can hunt these type of geese. If it wasn't a crocodile here, they wouldn't stick around in the middle and take it easy like this, because croc would actually hunt them. So maybe it's not yet crocodile in this dam. We've been seeing here also a lot of lekker one, which is a water monite lizard that sometimes come and bask on a bank. I was actually hoping to see one here because it's actually okay. So you want to know where do they lay their eggs? So Egyptian geese, they more likely use other, on top of the other birds' nests, more especially weaver's nest or red-billed weaver's nest. They're more likely to use those right on top, and they don't get inside. And on top also of the nest of Hamburg nest as well. So they can do that. If it's safer, they can actually also use eagle's nest if there is any eagle nest around here. But some eagles don't actually, there's a set time or set season of breeding. So it's never clashed with these birds, so they're more likely to use those nests for a time being. And actually very another interesting a duck that's just landed on the far right of, I don't know if we can able to get it there. I'm just going to see if we can get it. There it is. So you can see it's actually the female of a knob-billed duck, or comb duck. Such a beautiful color. A lot of the back on the top, white under. It looks like Egyptian geese are after this poor duck over here. So I'm gonna stay here put just to see what is happening. Looks like they're all chasing one another. I'm going to be sending you over to JP.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Tswalu. It took us quite a little bit of time to get down from the hillside, and on the way down we discovered a midden of a Smith's red rock rabbit. And this is a typical type of habitat where you will find them in. I'm just going to quickly show you a little picture of the Smith's red rock rabbit over here. So quite often these are confused with hares, which has got much longer legs. They're also generally much larger eared, and hares in general have white tail tips compared to the red tail tip, which is typical of most of the red rock rabbits. We also have a small amount of the dung over here, and this is quite interestingly re-eaten by the rabbit. So we find with hares and rabbits that they've got a fairly poor digestive system, and that they have to re-eat their dung to obtain all the nutrients and minerals from that. So we find that they do produce two different types of dung during the daytime: day feces, which is re-eaten, and then night feces, which is disregarded at nighttime and not re-eaten at all. Quite often with day feces, we also find that it's covered with a thin little glutinous layer. I also want to point out quickly how the hares look like. There's two species of hare that we find at Tswalu. The one is known as a Cape hare, and the other is known as a scrub hare. So in general, if you do want to separate these two in a night drive, you quickly have to flash on your light of them. You'll notice with the scrub hare that it's got a white underbelly, while the Cape hare has got a buff or ochre underparts, which you can use to separate the two from one another. So What we also find, how hares and rabbits differ from one another, is that hares have got precocial young that is born in an advanced state and they can immediately go active soon after that they've been born, compared to that of a red rock rabbit, which is born with its eyes closed and helpless at first and is fully dependent on the mother for a short period of time until it's old enough to start taking care of itself. Quite often, if you do go on night drive, you will see a scrub hare or cape hare, but we less often tend to see the red rock rabbit, as they are habitat specific. From here, we're going to continue down further south and see what's going on in some of the water holes. But in the meanwhile, we're going to hand you over to Lauren, who is currently viewing a group of hippo.
We have came to Big Dam, which is actually not that big, believe it or not. It's a very misleading name, but it's beautiful. It's right on the Mangaletti boundary, and the area that we're sort of about to go into is where you see lots of jackals and lots of cheetah. It's a great area for dogs as well. It's when these species sort of cross from the north down into the south, which is what we're going to look for today. I tried to get you cheetahs the other day, but before I got there, they'd crossed into the KNP boundary. So unfortunately, we were not able to get them for you. But luckily, we have a resident hippo. Isn't that great? Sometimes, when they want to show themselves for camera at least. Hippopotamus amphibius, that's actually their Latin name. Amphibian refers to two phases of life, water and land. But the word hippopotamus itself actually comes from the Greek meaning water horse, because they look like a very large horse that lives in the water. It's actually not a bad name at all. And on a day like today, you'll find they rarely pop their head up. They really will submerge for as long as they can. Sarah, you're 7 years old, and you're asking how long can hippos stay underwater? Normally for an adult, it's around 5 to 6 minutes maximum that they'll stay underwater. They don't breathe underwater, of course, they just hold their breath and dunk themselves under. They need to come to the surface to breathe air. But a youngster wouldn't be able to do that. A young calf can normally stay under for about 40 seconds as a newborn, and as it gets bigger and older, it can stay under for longer and longer. Now, a lot of these dams give the sort of appearance that they're very, very deep. But I can assure you most of them are not. They're full, but they're not deep. And a lot of the time when you see hippos, they're just standing on their little tippy toes on the bottom of the dam. They're not swimming. Being water horses, they can't swim. They definitely don't have the body shape or design. Oh dear. To be able to swim elegantly through the water. So normally they just keep their tippy toes on the ground, bounce up and down, or they can exhale, become negatively buoyant, and they'll just sink to the bottom. So their feet will be on the ground, and then when they need to come up for air, they can just push themselves back up off the ground, inhale, and they'll be positively buoyant again. Buoyancy, you can control your own buoyancy, even a human, with your lungs. It's a technique that takes quite some time to master, but it's doable. So normally scuba divers start off by adding weights and weight belts in order to make yourself sink. But once you get a lot of practice, and it does take a lot of practice, you can actually control your own buoyancy. Once your lungs fill up with air on the inhale, you will become positively buoyant. And once you empty your lungs by exhaling, a big deep exhale, that will make you negatively buoyant. Oh, so it appears I am not the only one at the dam today. Nikki is at the dam looking at some birds.
Yeah, so we're also at a waterhole here at and Beyond Ngala, and we are looking at a very interesting bird. Now, what I would like to know from the viewers, especially those that are keen on birds, is what bird are we looking at now? You'll notice the bill is probably going to be the biggest. It's quite slender at the base, but then all the way down towards the very end, it forms the spoon-like shape. So it's probably going to be the only hint that I can give. So while we're waiting for our viewers to tell us what they think, there's quite a few other birds around this waterhole. So let's just zoom. We'll do some birding together. Now right here, I'm trying to see the color of the wing, but you'll notice there's a very prominent white stripe on the side of the wing of these two birds near the water's edge. So these birds are referred to as water thickneys. The old name was a water dikkop. And their call they make sounds like a battery dying. It's like a like towards the. And let's follow a little bit around.
So far, still quiet this side.
Oh, sorry about that, everyone. I'm listening to my radio. I'm just going to turn it down. Don't quite know what happened to Andrew, but we are heading to the Mangulati boundary. Darby's very excited. It's not actually traversed Buffalo's Hook. Oh, that's not a good idea to turn around. Sorry, everyone. It's not. Yeah, he's traversing Buffalo's Hook for the first time. That's why we're going around all the dams. They didn't find a leopard. Tlalamba was the only leopard found this morning. And she disappeared fairly quickly. So here we are, believe it or not, on my left to the south is Buffalo's Hook. And on my right, this beautiful sort of more open area is the Mangulati. Right up north. We're very far from Djuma. And because it's so open, although the grass is incredibly long, I must say, it's a great area for cheetah. They see cheetah a lot here. And luckily, we get fantastic signal. So here we are, Dav. What do you think?
Love it.
Love it. So we're going to drive very slowly and see if we can see any moving bodies through the grass. But we're going to send you back down to Andrew and his weavers.
Thanks, Lauren. Sorry about that. So we here with our musk weavers. It's actually quite a lot of them there. They're all making a lot of noises. But all you see is also a lot of a hanging nest. And they're so clever birds, which they choose the trees which is in the middle of the water, that it's safe. Even though you're looking at these nests, they place them in very thin branches. So it's actually zero chance for a snake to get into those cheeks. Where some of the construction is still taking place is mostly males involved of making nest. Where sometimes male would end up making maybe 3 roughly different nests, where there's a system where females should come in and do an inspection. Once the nest is done, it happens if she don't like it, then she won't use it then for the male to build another one. Oh, there's a beautiful male comb duck just land into that water. I know we've seen female that was chased by Egyptian geese, but this is actually male. Specifically the musk weaver. So there is a system where male and female actually participate in one nest until it's done. So they don't share nest. That's why what you see there, they actually all group, but each one married to a wife or husband. And that makes it a lot easier for them to actually be able to control which nest is which. But those nests that is not used, that I'm not sure if the different parents or different pair would be able to use them once it's not needed by the owner of it. Which I think if then is the case, I don't think there would be any reason why they would defend them not to use it once it's abandoned. So they never share a nest. Only the pair of them use a nest. When a female, she spends a lot of time, she's the one that she incubates the eggs, which the incubation only takes about 12 days after the whole process of building this nest. And lies 3 to 4 eggs sometimes in there. And you would see sometimes eagle will play very Morgan. So you want to know how many chicks do they have. So usually they lie roughly 3 eggs, 4 eggs. Possibly 3 will hatch or 2 will hatch, the others fail. And all of them hatch. Yeah, so roughly three chicks will actually hatch into the nest. And they need like several weeks once after hatch, so they will gain feather on them. So both partner, male and female, now it's their duty to perform feeding these chicks. They will bring such an insect into that entrance. And it's actually going inside there. It's quite a technique, and they're very sharpening a nail claw where they use them for sneak and then hang but fit the neck inside to the nest, and the young one will be able to receive the package from outside. So when it comes to any insects, they would anything from dragonflies, anything's available, grasshoppers, and they'll be brought back to their nest for these young ones to be able to feed. But once they gain their feather, then they will learn how to fly. For the very first hour they get out of that nest, they will perch into trees just to get the sun shining them. And since they spend a lot of time in that nest for the first time to see the sky in the world, and this is when they get out of that. But they're not experienced enough to be able to hunt themselves that time. They still need their parents. Gabriel, yes, they do have a laying season, which anything from September. And yeah, anything from September, August, April, those months, February. So roughly 4 months. And if they miss August and then January or February, which is now we're actually December, it makes sense. If January and February would be probably chicks flying around here, and these nests will remain hanging there after they're well abandoned, because there's one season to go. Once they're all hatched, their eggs and chicks come out, and then it's done until the next season again. And they will be able to build another nest. They won't use the older one. And that's why they're more likely not to come back to the very same trees which these nests will be placed in there. There's a lack of hanging branches. Maybe it's less of those branches that were needed for next time. So I'm going to stay put here and just to see what is coming to drink into this watering hole.
My favorite animal is a leopard, purely because I just think they are just the epitome of feline grace and power, and the way they can move about in any environment and remain hidden until they want to be seen, I just find incredibly intoxicating, and they're amazingly beautiful.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
My name is Lauren, and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me, and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
An ever-increasing part of the global population is losing its connection with nature. Wild Earth is here to reduce people's stress and anxiety, allowing you to escape into nature even just for a few hours a day. However, Wild Earth is expensive to run, and we need help from you to keep this ship going. Wild Earth Explorers gives you the opportunity to be part of a program that supports the sharing of nature with the world. Have you been watching Wild Earth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. Wild Earth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live Wild Earth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply.
Great, so we're still here in this very beautiful watering hole here. It's quite a few to offer. Now, see, it looks like all black crake type of bird who is actually pushing one another here. Looks like a male and a female. You can hear some of the rattling sound going on. Disappeared into that grasses. But now we've got somebody else. Look at that. Green-backed heron. Also trying to get into the edge of water, but now it's plumbing right into the thicket. But that then would feed on frogs type and fishes. And they would spend a lot of time here, night and day. There we go again. Oh, the female. So thick. So you're asking if there's a crocodile here? No, I doubt. I don't think it is a crocodile. It's actually small. Just especially where we're looking at it now. It's just a shell of water, and it's not even deeper. So I know a crocodile that don't mind wherever there's water, but there's no one here. Never seen one in a while. What's so special about this time of year? Birding is great, and all of these water birds that you see, all black cracks. If you don't spend a lot of time in the water, you won't see them most. They hide in these reeds, tall grasses, as you see it trying to go into the female. So there's some, it's all about bathing as well. And a very shy bird, I can tell you, if it's actually far enough. Otherwise, they just fly off and disappear into reeds or these brushes. doing its search for probably anything a small frogs will get. It's got a beautiful beak, which is kind of like a little of a yellow, slightly of a red at the top, but it's a black crake, its name. Preening. Lisa, I agree with you. It's such a beautiful, especially looking or listening to these birds all viewing there and look at the water. So it's actually bring kind of like quality of a nature out here. So black crake, they do make kind of a sound where very kind of a vocal, deeply sound they do, especially male when they pushing too much to the females, which breeding season has got to be right now. Most of these water birds, where the raining seasons, it's quite a lot of food for them frogs. They're harder to breed well when it's winter because there's no such a food for them to hunt. So black crake, sometimes they dive into water, dip in, come out from the other side. They can also fly. This is when they switch from one water hole to another quite often. So it looks like it just opened its wing a little bit. Probably sitting, against the sun there, basking off while preening itself. So the egg, nest will be put in one of these reeds next to water. In a hiding area where it's not visible. Or well camouflage as well, but they use very much kind of like all dry material, grasses, dry reeds, those things. So yeah, I'm gonna stay put here, see what comes to drink at a water hole before we move off, and I'm going to be sending you over to Nick.
So we're also at a dam here at Pridelands, and we found this very large herd of impala, and the youngsters were, although they seem to have stopped now, prancing around like crazy, doing that interesting rocking, jumping run that they use that's sometimes known as stotting, which is what I've been talking about previously, showing off their fitness so that any predators around would know that they're very strong and healthy and wouldn't chase them. They've all stopped now, but you can see there's lots and lots of young ones here, and they're actually just leaving the water, so perhaps they've just had a drink and that's why they're excited. Oh, there's a couple more starting to run around now. Oh, there they come. Look at them. Look at them all going. Wow, there's so many youngsters. All of them jumping and prancing. Now, this is not because they've seen danger at all. They're just super excited. Wow, look at them go. There's a male that's been moving around here making noise, trying to herd them all together. And so that might also be causing a little bit of excitement amongst the group. Remember, it's been so hot that they've been sitting probably in the shade the whole time. Peter, they have got an incredible jumping ability. Peter, I think these impalas can jump more than 10 meters in a straight line if they're at a full run. And almost 3 meters straight up in the air. So you can imagine at a full run, they could clear most of these small building, like Superman. They could leap a small building in a single bound. Most of these small shrubs and bushes, they could jump straight over them when running from danger. Could easily jump over a whole road. In the Kruger Park, there's many videos of impalas being chased by predators, and you can see them jumping all the way across the road in a single leap. There goes the male. He's not happy. He doesn't like that everyone's running around. They must stay orderly. He's trying to control them to make sure that they don't wander off, because these are all probably his offspring, and so he's got an interest in making sure they all survive. They probably won't be all his offspring, though. Impalas are very sneaky. There will be some young males that might have gotten a chance to mate right at the end of the rutting season, when this male was maybe getting a bit exhausted from all the fighting that he had to do. All seems to be settling down, though. I think he's managed to get his point across. Christopher, I like that question because they're often mistaken. Anyone who comes from the western part of the country or has been to East Africa and done safaris there will often call gazelles, which is what a springbok is. A springbok is a type of gazelle, and an impala is an antelope. Now, they're all more or less the same, except that gazelles are generally smaller and usually more colorful than the antelopes. And also with antelope, they, like impala, the males have horns, the females do not. Whereas with springbok, both males and females have horns. Now, physically, the horns is not the only difference. A springbok has a dark black stripe and lots of light markings on the side of its body, whereas and it has this crest of fur that they can raise when they're running around and jumping, like what these impalas were just doing. The impalas don't have that. Impalas are this reddish color, this dark red on the back, or the dark color on the back, the lighter stripe in the middle, and then pale on the belly. And they're a bit larger as well. Impala is almost twice the size of a, well, not quite twice the size, but certainly much larger than a springbok. But otherwise a pretty similar animal. They both feed on grass. Impalas can also eat leaves if they want to. Springbok generally only occur in grassland areas, so they're mostly grazers. But a nice question. Impala actually have one other adaptation that makes them unique compared to springbok, and that is, if you could see some of those youngsters there standing out in the open, you can see that dark marking on the bottom of the back legs. That's called a metatarsal gland. And that metatarsal gland, we're not exactly sure what it does, but perhaps you see these young ones on the right here. I don't know if you can see those heads starting to run around again. Those young ones there are jumping up and down like that, and now there's a theory that the metatarsal gland gets activated when these antelope run and jump like that, and releases a scent which can maybe help them to find each other when they've been in some sort of danger, like they've been scattered maybe by a predator, which is very interesting. I don't know how we can properly test that theory, but it's certainly one of the theories. All's looking quite peaceful now, though. They're all feeding on this grasses on the edge. Oh, no, some of the youngsters still running around, still being a bit crazy. Jin, that's another excellent question. Now, the two terms are often interused, stotting and pronking, but as far as I understand it, and I'm not sure that I understand it very well, but as far as I understand it, Pronking is what springbok do when they jump with all four legs off the ground at the same time, arching their back as high as they can and jumping straight up. That is what I know as pronking. Now, stotting is what you saw the impalas doing now, where they jump up and forward and they land on their front feet and kick their back legs out in this kind of seesawing motion. So then they'll jump onto their back legs, rock onto the front, and it looks very interesting. That's more or less what I know as stotting. But I know the two terms are fairly interused. But generally speaking, we as far as I know, we call it stotting for the impalas and pronking for the gazelles like springbok. Pronking to me always just sounds like something you do with all four legs. You pronk up. And stotting does sound to me very much like a seesaw. That's how I always remembered it. But both are doing a similar thing where they're showing off their fitness and strength, not only to a predator that might be watching, but also to potential mates and rivals. The higher I can jump and the longer I can jump for, generally speaking, the stronger and fitter that I am, meaning that if you try and fight me, chances are you are going to lose and waste a lot of energy doing so. Look at this youngster's running past again. Wow, that's really cool. So now you can really see that seesawing, bouncing motion. I don't know if you were able to get that, Gert. Yeah, that's really, really awesome. So that there is obviously also to do with fitness and using energy and strengthening their bodies, because these are all very young, so they still need to build their strength to be able to escape from predators. But whilst these impalas all do their practicing and their athletics, we'll send you over to Lauren, who's got some baboons.
We've just been watching a troop of baboons terrorize some impala, but it's actually very difficult to get them on camera because the grass is so long. I'm at Kayamanzi Dam area, and this is where we had a very large troop of baboons the last time. I wonder if it's the same troop. And although they're not territorial, they may just enjoy staying around one area that's safe. Look at this baboon here, Dov. He's chasing all the impala. I don't know if you can see him. The impala are relaxed, but once he gets too close, they think, I don't trust you. And there's one up that tree there, having a good old scratch. Oh, he's climbed down now. The sun is making it very difficult for us to see anything. Not for the baboons, of course. Kim, you're asking why do you always see baboons with impalas? I'm not entirely sure you do. I just think they're not competitors. The baboons are not going to harm the impala are not going to harm the baboons. But out here anyway, in the Lowveld, I rarely see baboons with impala. They're just moving, they're just sort of crossing paths, shall we say. But the impala here look a little bit anxious. But I mean, baboons will eat sort of a wide variety of food. They're omnivorous, from fruit to grass, seeds, bulbs, invertebrates, even small mammals. Not impala lambs, that would be too big, but small rodents or a bushveld gerbil would be the perfect size, for example, or maybe a young dwarf mongoose. But because they do eat grass, then of course when the impalas are grazing, they're probably just both utilizing the same areas. They're just cohabiting the same space. Or maybe they just enjoy terrorizing them. Christian, 8 years old. I just ran through it, but they are omnivores, so they will eat anything, really, from fruit, grass, seeds, small insects, small mammals, and even small birds. Very, very small birds, like your doves, or even your pigeons that are possibly on the ground, chicks. They have a very wide diet, Christian. And they're not territorial, so they just roam. They enjoy to roam, explore, eat whatever they come across, and they can sometimes roam up to 15 kilometers in search of food and water. Of course, they're water dependent. They don't limit themselves to specific territories, which requires effort. If you have a territory and you choose social dominance, then you have to defend it. You have to actively defend that territory. It's chasing the impala. Why? I'm not sure why. Poor impala. But they do have home ranges, so there's a difference in the term when you use the term home range. That's just an area that you will find an animal or a species. It's not actively defended, it just contains all the resources that they need. Home ranges are very large, territories are smaller, and when you use the word territory, it just means that, again, it's an animal or a group of animals that are claiming an area as their own, and it has to be actively defended. We've got a bit of a catwalk going on the damn wall. Look at that one, that's a big boy. So yes, you have to put a lot of effort and spend a lot of energy in defending your territory, and baboons don't do that. Instead, they just choose to roam great distances. But often troops' home ranges will cross with one another. Not their territory, but their home ranges will definitely cross paths. And normally if they cross paths of another troop, it's a very vocal, aggressive affair. They will shout. They try to avoid physical confrontation, but they will not be happy. And it's normally they sort of fight over sleeping sites, if you like. That's the most valued resource next to food and water, sleeping sites. Safe areas where the troop can sleep. There's normally trees, because that's where they sleep at night, safe, away from all the other predators. And this is sort of what they really do protect. They protect their sleeping sites. They will bark, they will chase, they will also shake branches. They'll make a really large scene about protecting their sleeping sites. So I believe there's a carcass in the dam ahead, so we're going to bumble around and see what it is.
Thanks, Lauren. Now we have picked up another breeding herd of elephants. But this time they're wet. And then I think also this is a different herd over here, because those one we saw, they were near Gari and they were heading west from that last position of quarantine, where now we're on a cheetah line, but Gari man, it looks like they're going to cross into the south, the boundary over here. We're right on the boundary. So there's quite a few of a bigger one, and also the young one they have. But everybody's wet, already trying to cool themselves during that heat, just to get a temperature low down. These are one of the young males that they're still allowed to be in a group. And it looks like this is how they're going to be crossing into the south. We're probably going to try reposition. Hopefully we got another good look at them before they disappeared. So all I do, I'm going to try and reposition.
Unfortunately, the baboons have just moved off the dam wall. They were all walking along it catwalk fashion. This is one of the big chaps. I wonder if this is one of the dominant males. They have quite a unique social systems. And the sort of appropriate term is oligarchy. That's the name of their social structure. And basically they have a band of dominant males, not just one. There's sort of a number of dominant males, and they work cooperatively together. And this is to, well, defend the females, because they're not territorial, remember, so they're not defending their territory. But by cooperating with other males, they're defending their females, and therefore they're sharing the breeding resources. So this allows them to have bigger troops. The more males to defend the females, they can keep them, they can protect them, and then they'll have more mating opportunities. The female baboons are very promiscuous, and they can mate up to 100 times in one estrus cycle with various different males. So that keeps them very, very busy, but what that means is she will mate with different males. So all the sort of dominant males will get a chance to mate with the females in estrus, and this will increase each individual's breeding success. So it's not a harem system. A harem system like zebras or even hippos, that's when you just have one dominant male with a sort of... Look at that, 2 shots. Nice shot, Davi. Just chilling with the impala, you know, just hanging out. So yes, it's not a harem structure. It's oligarchy, and that's when there's a band of dominant males. But within this band, there is actually a hierarchy, and normally the younger males, believe it or not, which can be immigrants, they can be the most aggressive and the most dominant. The young males are said to be very, very aggressive because they've got to prove themselves, especially if they've just joined a troop. And the males will be sort of very active with their advertising. They will really display their dominance, and they'll show off their extremely impressive canines. The canines are not small. Elisa, you're asking how many babies can a baboon have at one time? I'm not actually sure. I believe it's 1. I'm sure it's just 1 because they're long-lived animals. They can live up to 30 years, and it's a lot of maternal investment. Now, normally the mother carries the baboon on her tummy, and as they get older, she can carry them on her back. And they're born very altricial, which means that they're underdeveloped, and they're really helpless for quite some time. It takes them a long time to develop. They grow very, very slowly, and they go through various different stages. Just checking what's going on here with the impala. They're a bit spooked, but I don't know if it was just one of the rowdy males being a rowdy male. I think so. So yes, they go through different stages. They go from infant, quite a helpless infant. They grow into a juvenile, then they have an adolescent stage, and then an adult. And they learn a lot by watching their mothers and more experienced baboons. And that's how they grow into an adult. So I think it's just 1, but I will check that for you. Normally, the species with that really high level of maternal care will have less offspring. You'll only find them really having 1 or maximum 2. Now, when we first came to Kyamanzi Dam today, we saw something in the water that we couldn't quite identify, and a hyena was nearby. Definitely not a Juma clanner, shall we call them. I think it's a carcass, and a few of the other vehicles that we've actually bumped into think it's also a carcass. So we're just going to go round to the other side of the dam and see if we can identify what it is, and potentially there may be some hyenas around. Now, hippos, they do have a harem system. They do have one dominant male that tries to get all the females to himself, and he will not tolerate other bulls. But you can have different dominant males. Because Kyamanzi Dam's so big, I don't even know if Davy can fit it all in one frame. It's huge. There can be different pods or bloats. There can maybe be one dominant male over here, for example, hypothetically speaking, and another dominant male with his ladies away down there. So there can be many different dominant males, but they won't be part of the same social structure. Okay, so I think we'll go round and see if we can show this carcass to you. I can't identify what animal it may be. It does have a fawny colour. I'm wondering if it's an impala. I don't know anything about the carcass or how it got in the water. I don't have any details, but I think we'll go and investigate. And apparently there was 4 hyenas around this morning. It would be good to start getting IDs of hyenas that we see around Buffelshoek. I'd like to start collecting them, very much so. So it's just over here. I wonder, it may be gone already if the crocodile got its mouth around it. But let's just see if we can find it for you. But it's in the middle of the water with crocodiles surrounding it, and it's very deep, and that's exactly why the hyenas, I believe, this morning did not go in to fetch it.
It came in on the north of us.
Sorry about that, everyone. We must have went through a little signal glitch. But this is the carcass, or believed to be a carcass. I mean, I have absolutely no idea what it is, but it's floating. So I think it's a dead animal of sorts. You're welcome to send in your suggestions. And it's right in the middle of the dam. I'm surprised a croc's not pulled it under, I must say. But I think maybe the smell was what was attracting the hyenas. I'm not sure if you can see it from here, Dobby, but I think that's one of the crocodiles right at the edge of the water here. It's a large crocodile. We saw him earlier. Yes, so I'm not sure if that's a carcass, why a crocodile hasn't sort of gone for it. But there's some big individuals in here. Of course, when we go to Chitwa, there's Boris and Vlad. But here at Kyamanzi Dam, there's some very large crocodiles who primarily feed on fish. They're fishermen, but they're opportunistic, and they will snatch anything they can that comes to the water edge. As we all know, there's been some horrifying sightings of animals going to drink and a crocodile coming out of nowhere. So I wonder if we just go to the dam wall and see if there's any hyenas around. I'd like to work on that mission with you all. Any hyenas we start to see in Buffelshoek, I know Michael Fleetwood, you're attempting it. Let's try and put together a sort of...
Belongs to the same husband. Sorry, Lorraine. So yeah, we now left. The elephants have moved across to the south. So we're going to be checking around here. I know where Columba, she was actually recorded, seen around here this morning, but crossing to the north, where the guys they couldn't follow up on her there. It looks like she just disappeared into that eastern side of Mlawati. So now I'm in the area just to see if maybe we get a chance of finding her or seeing the tracks that we can follow. Not sure how far she have moved into that morning, where the temperature at the time it was still low, but then it picked up much harder hot when it was rise up anything from 10 o'clock there. It was not actually easy for any cats to get up, move, but you know, they would use shadow to shadow through grasses like this. So this is what am I planning to do. So I'm gonna check around a few roads here and just to see the tracks, you know, follow this leopard, and then I'm sure she either move far or not far. And then, but all we, you know, it's so important if once you find the tracks, it's gonna be easy for me and for everyone who they're working around here, trying to find her tracks to able to follow her. It's quite a lot of a drainage line system where she might maybe stuck or slip in those shadows. It's a beautiful bird there, Simon. Again, looks like a juvenile over here of a Lollipressed Roller. We talked earlier about that, you know, this type of bird, it's the time they raise their chicks, which is now, this time of year. And the reason I'm saying it's a chick, it's still a young one, that it's because of their tail is still square a lot than the two wires sticking out at the back there, or racket tail. So it's still young. The mother could be around further distances because she's gonna keep an eye on the young one. And then as it's gaining a lot of experience how to survive because they're gonna be independent soon. They were able to take care of its own life, hunt for its own. So this type of bird, it's got a beautiful color, about 7 different colors there. All you see on the breast, it's all lilac color that you see. But if it's ever a chance, you have a beautiful light, you will just witness a beautiful color. See next, not related to that. Most of the kingfishers, they are fish eaters a lot. A few of those are actually, you know, feed on land, which for insect, which are those of woodland kingfishers and thing. But you look in this, they would, you know, slightly closer to, you know, most of these, you know, hornbill, but not closest. Or these greenwood hoopoes and things like this. So this bee is actually trying to make its call. It's probably the parents follow, or they make a call that has to move, keep up with them far down there. I can hear a call. Looks like that was a call that the mother has made, so that the young one must fly into that direction. We're gonna move on. It's been actually very hot today. So those animals that they were in shade, this time since the sun, you know, it's slightly going down a bit, But anything from 1845 there, it's going to be a sunset. And that's where most of the animals that don't really move into very heat day or very warm conditions, they would mainly try and shore themselves up, move about, look around, do their hunt, their grazing, those types. Samuel, can you see some grass over here? So here we also have another beautiful bird on the ground, hopefully stays for us, which is a female double-banded sand grouse. And they mainly pair, but they're very sometimes well camouflaged, where when they're on the roads, they mainly freeze. And the reason for that is that they watch in the sky. They get sprayed by hawks, eagles. So this is all about crossing the road, but safe when they do that. So immediately if they spot any eagles out there, they're just going to move faster into the grasses and stop, freeze. There was a beautiful sound in the background. There was two of the Woodland Kingfishers that were calling, and a capped turtle dove that is giving its own instrumental. Kate, you're right. The pattern is actually great, beautiful in this bird. Don't know if male will come out while here, but that even more than that. See a lot of a white and a brown. Printing. They mainly nest on ground. They're a ground bird. And what's so special about them is that they drink water dusk and dawn, where if you're near a water hole that time, once it's lightly dark taking places, they all arrive from different places as a pair of them drink. And the reason for that is that they have a chance to actually carry water through their throat feather, and they'll fly with this feather being so wet back to their cheeks if they're nesting somewhere for them to drink, the young one. It's actually what's a way of bringing water to the young one. It just looked like a partridge. What type of these bear fowls around here? So they actually do move, but when they move, they lower down a bit. You hardly see the little feet they have. And they'll eat grass, seed, most. Can't stop turning itself, probably for all of a parasite in their body. Kill. So you're asking what is the difference? So the tell is that the male is even a lot more kind of white patch you see than this one. This is only the difference. So there is a difference in color also. many of birds like this, sometimes you find a male's a lot bigger, females are a lot bigger, males are a lot smaller. Where francolins, males will have spurs on the back of their legs, just a little sharpening, kind of like spiky spurs. See how it moves, but carefully when you do it. If it was a francolin, one of the spare fowls, you will see its properly legs. So they only drink that time of a dusk and dawn, so which means they won't go down to drink during the day. Hardly to see them, and I actually never heard of it. But I only drink whenever it's dark, little kind of like dark taking places, but not very late night, but dusk and dawn. As the dark take places, that's where they arrive into water. So that in the winter, it makes them fly far away for the water and fly back to their range or back to their cheeks. This is in the winter. Nowadays, these days, we're in the summer now, water's everywhere. Where no need for them to get around, all of them to take a drink. There's Impala trying to cross the road, the far side. Yeah, looks like two male impalas. Sorry, do you want to repeat that question again from Sassy Cassie? Sassy Cassie. So, quite a lot of small animals like this. What would imagine them? Probably those eagles, most hogs. And they don't like mix with the other birds as well. So that's where you find them separately like this. Sometimes can apply those situations when they're vulnerable because they're outnumbered and they don't actually have a lot of a lookout. But the hawks mainly. This type of kite we have, yellow-bellied kite. Most of these when they hunt, they fly and then they don't spend time and they take whatever they could and fly with them still alive. With many of other eagles, they land on the prey species and they kill them. Feed on the ground, mainly when they take it up, it's when they have eaten already in it. Is clear ground. In generally, most birds species, so their digestion is even a lot stronger than the other most animals, which they can digest things that are so hard, like stone things, from the ground. So I'm going to leave this bird here, doing my search.
just pretended to be dead. Oh, that was amazing. I can't. How do I it's like that is hands down the coolest.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Hi, my name is Taylor McCurdy and I'm coming to you from eco training here on Pridelands. My most favorite animal in Africa has to be the elephant that's behind me, and this is Kumo, you'll meet him. But elephants just in general, they're really sociable, they're always doing something, and I love to see the interactions between the members of the herd.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth. For the month of January 2021, we are offering a chance to win a unique Wild Earth expedition to the magnificent Tswalu Kalahari. From the ancient Kortai's Koranenberg Mountains to the southern Kalahari's red sand dunes, Tswalu offers what travelers crave most: space and time. The winner will explore this landscape in a vehicle, on foot, or on horseback, with a chance to go behind the scenes with Wild Earth and of course meet the meerkats. The prize includes a 3-night stay for you and a friend at the luxury Motse Lodge, including flights from either Johannesburg or Cape Town. Open to all Wild Earth explorers who have signed up before the end of January 2021. Terms and conditions apply.
So have a look at this beautiful young man. It's just moved from an open area into this. It was feeding off the grass. Now I don't know, maybe if there's leopard or something. Let's just give it a bit of time. We heard. Now what we can do is just try and reposition a bit, because this bar might be in the way just from the angle with the vehicle. So just hold with us, move a little bit. Here we go. So just notice the way that he's sitting down. So there's an open area just off to the left. And I wonder, and I can even see a herd of impala, so he might even be just sitting here and observing, patiently waiting to get dark before he... Now, this male is probably close to 2 years old. And just judging by the size of his head, the size of his face, and with him, he is very much capable of catching a young impala, and especially now this time of the year, there's a lot of babies around. He'll patiently be waiting. So we're just going to zoom out into this open area. The impalas are a little bit further off, so won't be able to see it, but just the open area on this side. Just showing you the open area now. As we mentioned, you can't really see the impala, but they're further off to the left of the screen, and there is a massive open area for this leopard to cross, so maybe what he can do is just wait for it to cool down before he even attempts that. Leopards are doing.
Sorry, Ngala, about that. Now we have another bird over here posing for us. Very nice. And there's little twigs, which is a Swanson's, Franklin's. It might actually go down because there's another one calling from the ground. One of the big Franklin around here, spare fowls. Swanson spare fowls. So most of that heat, you see it's big. Quite a little bit of an openness, trying to dehydrate and also cool off itself. Almost like a normal birds, chickens at home as well. There it's actually probably for a lookout, because many of them are on grasses. They spend a lot of time on the grasses. And when they're right in these slightly logs and maybe sometimes up in the trees, just for a lookout, if it's safe, still safe wherever they are. And maybe they'll probably sleep around here, because now it's getting late that they won't going to travel far away. Trying to balance it. Where breeding season is mainly anything from November, August, somewhere there. They can lay anything from 12 to about 13 eggs sometimes. And they're slightly pinkish, but on the ground. But in this area we have all 5 different species, so started from this. Well, yes, it is. And what any calls that they make, especially Franklin, there's quite a lot of difference of them. So, calls they make, if it's the same species, they're able to notice that. But if it's also a bird of prey, also know that. But if it's another different species of Franklins, they'll also know that. And they're hardly to mix with the other different birds, Swanson, Spayfowl. If it's a chance that for other species of Franklins to come and join, not a problem. But you will see they eventually will separate. Each group leads its own way. But there, it's recalling on the call that is happening around here, where it's the friend that is on the ground, probably lost its visual right at the top. So it's calling out. Beautiful. Yeah, the other one responding, coming in closer, because they heard a call. Like I just explained, this is about the time they might get around, sleep in the same area. For as a male, he has to make sure that everybody back into a group. It was a very much beautiful song there. We always talk about the red face they have as an alcoholic bird, but they're never an alcoholic bird. It's just kind of a nickname when you're out here. You kind of like put some few names on the animal around. So they won't actually do a lot of movement at night at all, unless if they get disturbed in full moons they're able to fly. But many of these birds, they don't do a movement at night. So I'm going to leave this bird now to my continual search. I'm going to be sending you over to Nikki with a leopard.
have a look at this male now, how he's just lowered his head. He's trying to rest, but even though he is resting, look at his ears. You'll notice how they're moving. And what he's basically doing is he's keeping a 360-degree awareness of what's going on around him. There was an hyena earlier on that moved past, and it probably picked up the scent of this leopard. What's quite interesting about this particular individual is if you look at that right ear, if you see the left, you see how well-rounded it is towards the tip, and then that right ear almost looks like at the very end of it, there's this little dip in the ear. But very, very comfortable. And it might be, remember we said there were some impalas earlier on, so it might be that he's just moved, stopped here. He's basically looking in their direction as we speak. Just rest up, waiting for it to get a bit darker, because often when it's dark, some of these impalas will move to these open areas because it's just, it's easier for them to spot. Rivers, I agree with you. Finally, some spots. I don't know what has been seen over, like with all the other ranges across the different reserves, but we're very lucky to see leopard. And as I mentioned earlier, it's one of my favorite animals as well. Zebra, of course, being my favorite, and very close to that is something like a beautiful leopard like this. Especially this male, being able to see how it, especially since we started Safari Live, how much he has grown until now. It makes it really special. Look at the color of those eyes. Do you enjoy the colors around the chin and the nose? And of course those long whiskers on the side of the face. Basically when he moves in thick areas like the one just behind him, he'll be able to feel if his body will be able to move through there or not. And if he's going to make a lot of noise, if he eventually decides to go for those impala. Have a look how the wind is blowing. You'll see the grass in front of him is moving. Now, just picture, he's lying down in a position looking at these impala, and the wind is blowing from the impala straight towards him. That's why now and again he'll just pick up his head like that just to have a good sniff. To basically just like figure out how far they are. You can see them probably, but also you'll be able to know by smelling them how far, how many. Christine, leopards don't really roar, but they have this sawing sound, like a. So it's more like a saw than a roar. The lions are the ones that are more capable of doing that. If you notice, like if you look at his left ear, so the ear that's closest to us now, if you follow it down, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots that are in a vertical line down, and just under them there's quite a few spots horizontally. Almost same on the other side as well. Now every single leopard has a different stripe or spot pattern. I nearly said stripe pattern because I was thinking about the zebras we mentioned earlier. So for now, we are going to spend more time with this leopard, see what he would be up to. But in the meantime, let's head across to JP with the bird.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Tswalu. We've been scouring quite a few waterholes this afternoon in search of some form of life. As it's been an incredibly warm day, we eventually got back to Chikudu Dam. We've just located on 2 southern African shell ducks. It looks like the same pair that we found a few days ago, as the female has got quite a lot of white on her head, and the white pattern is amount of white is normally variable between individuals. Male, that's a little bit further towards the left, has got an all-grey head. In Afrikaans, we refer to these as a koperend, meaning a bronze duck, because of overall bronze coloration which they have. For those that have only tuned in for the first time now, these ducks are quite unique in their behavior. Unlike other duck species which use a wide range of different areas to nest, these actually will make use of aardvark burrows. For those of you that don't know what's an aardvark, it's the local name for an ant bear. An ant bear is also known to provide home to quite a few different mammal species, which will utilize those burrows as their home. However, the aardvark only uses it for a very short period of time. Good afternoon, Ian, and welcome to the show. I assume that they would help because they're a monogamous pair and they do mate for prolonged periods of time. So, as far as I understand, is that they mate for life or for several seasons, and some species will mate for only for a single season. Quite often where you do have monogamy, where a pair has a committed period of time that they will spend with one another, there will be some commitment between the male and female. Good afternoon, Jackson. To answer that is generally referring to genetics. That's just been chased by a blacksmith lapwing over there, but just got a little bit too close to its nest. I can see how incredibly aggressive these little blacksmith lapwings can be at times when it comes to protecting eggs. Coming back to the question, it boils down generally to genetics. However, within South Africa, it is a word that's quite interchangeably used and quite often incorrectly used, as that we have no species of geese in South Africa. Neither is there any species of geese, with the exception of one species, which is known as the Ethiopian teal or blue-winged teal, which we find south of Sahara. So when the Dutch settlers arrived at the Cape, quite often they found fairly large ducks such as the Egyptian geese and a number of other species such as spur-winged goose, which was therefore incorrectly referred to as a goose. At the moment, it's such a beautiful sight, especially to see the beautiful sunlight bringing out their colors.
Thanks, JP. So we still continue here on the search, but we stop just to experience the sun setting there, which soon is going to be gone. 1845 from this last position we are right now, it's going to be gone. So all you see is just the beauty of a golden horizon. So nice. We can take a moment here, just listen also the birds on the side, the background. such a beautiful birds, amazing calls. So now the sun's going down. We're going to in a time where we'll operate with spotlight. This is where we're going to be searching around for nocturnal animals that we may come across, because we're still on look for our princess clamber.
Looks like he's slightly more awake at the moment. He's been keeping his eyes open, scanning quite thoroughly at the trees in the back. Now, there are a few impalas now moving, and I think that's probably what caught his attention. Also, a hyena around. So see the direction he's looking in now? Early on, there was a hyena down in that area. But it has moved away from this, from him. So we'll just have to spend time here and see what will he be up to. Is he just going to lie down for the next little while? Or is he eventually going to get up and start moving? And even today we have such a beautiful sunset over the Drakensberg Mountains in the distance. And it is cooling down after quite a warm day today. So Mo, I used to know what the leopard's bite force used to be in PSI. If I'm not mistaken, I'll have to just go and double check. I know something rings the bell around 200 PSI, but I'm sure it's slightly more than that. So I'll have to just go and double check, and hopefully on our next drive I'll be able to let you know. But I do know I'm sure it's quite a hard bite. Not to the extent of a lion or a hyena, which is probably going to be 3-4 times the bite force of this leopard. But I mean, he's still capable. Like, just look at his overall size. If you look at the size of head, the overall body, he'll probably weigh, and this is just shooting out of the hip, probably around, let's say, 65-70 kilograms, which is a lot of strength. I mean, that's all power. And pound for pound, he's a very strong cat. I mean, he's capable of carrying at least his body weight up into a tree. So let's say if he had to catch an impala, he'll be able to almost hoist a fully grown impala ram into a tree, which is really strong. And of course, he has to take his weight as well into that tree. I just love the noises in the back, like all the birds. I can hear Cokie Franklin in the distance. Stuart leopards are very opportunistic, and basically they can hunt any time of the day. They prefer hunting more at night because they have that element of surprise. They're able to sneak up a little bit closer towards their prey in order to hunt. But, I mean, if a leopard is lying down in the tree and an impala walks under the tree in the middle in the heat of the day at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, that leopard will take that opportunity because it never knows when its next meal is going to come. So if there is an opportunity to hunt and it knows that it will probably be, there's a good chance of being successful, that leopard will take that opportunity. But ideally, they are nocturnal. So in other words, they do move mainly at night and hunt at night. And so this one could just be waiting for it to cool down. Now, I've seen with young leopards, especially young male leopards, where they'll go sometimes for the water birds that's near the water's edge, especially at night. They could scavenge off a smaller predator, like something like a jackal, if they catch a scrubber hare or something else. And birds. There's a young male leopard that's often seen here that used to catch vultures. And this one I have seen catching fork-tailed drongos, like all the baby chicks in the nest. He used to climb up in the trees and then grab the little babies and then eat them. So very opportunistic. Anything they can possibly get, they'll go for. quick link. Let's head across to Tshwalu.
Welcome back. We still at Chikudu Dam, still watching what the birds are up to. And we just noted that the pair of blacksmith lapwings, which we've been watching over the last 10 days, have their chicks eventually hatched. And we're going to just try and get them into the screen. They're absolutely tiny, tiny, tiny. There's 3 of them that's walking around there, very close to one of the adults. So these little chicks, when they hatch, they can immediately start feeding and fending for themselves. However, Mom and Dad will keep a watchful eye open and quite often chase away predators or other potential threats, such as the shell ducks that came too close to them. We also quite often see that these birds will quite often display a broken wing, display where they will pretend to be injured to distract predators away from the chick or the nest. Let's come on to the springbok. We've just got a springbok that's coming down to drink. It's a female, which is coming closer, and you can see she's very, very cautious as that she is approaching. You'll always notice them looking from side to side and being very cautious that there's no predators that's hanging around the waterhole. In Tshwalu, we do not have crocodiles. However, there's animals such as cheetah and leopard that can potentially hide very close by to a waterhole and ambush animals such as a springbok when they come and drink. Good afternoon, Lisa, and welcome to the show. And I've just looked at your comment about how excited you are about these lapwing chicks. I'm equally excited in seeing them, knowing that they've been sitting for almost the last 10 days on those eggs. And I just love those little bundles of fluff. Our springbok has just disappeared. It's decided that it had more than enough to drink and didn't want to expose itself any further to any potential threats that might be hanging around. We're just going to watch those little blacksmith lapwing chicks and see what they're getting up to. In the meanwhile, while we're watching them, we're going to hand you over to Lauren, who's currently viewing a group of hyena.
I made it. Took me a while, but I'm at the den. Now, I was a little bit surprised at who was at the den. We've got Indabele here. She classifies as an adult, which is why we can stay here. But Comet was also here when we first arrived. Indabele and Comet had some kisses, and he's wandered off, but someone's whooping in the background. I can hear the iconic whoop. Now, all the cubs are out, except June's little one and Shimbulu. I don't think I've seen Shimbulu. Hearts, too, are inspecting the car, as always. You guys just love this car, and I'm not sure why. It's the smells. They must smell fantastic odors from the tires. And Corky's little one, hey. They go straight for the tire, straight for the rubber. We've got Ngwazi here, so it's just Shimbulu that's missing. Ngwazi, you are a lot bigger than the others. No, These cars are already not in great condition. You cannot lose a car to a hyena. Don't bite. Nope. I'm just going to move in my seat. I wish I could send the odor of hyenas through the screen to you all. They have a really strong scent. It's nothing like wild dogs. It's nothing like lions. I think it's lovely. I love the smell of hyenas. Kenya, that's a good question. I highly doubt it. But I do think they are familiar with humans. Not me per se, but the human form. They're very curious individuals, as you all know, and they regularly walk through camps. And I'm not just talking Juma or Wild Earth Camp. All of the camps around they will walk through. And they're used to encountering humans on foot. I've had some wonderful sightings on bushwalk with hyenas on foot. I don't think they fear the sort of bipedal man, the human form. So I think they're used to the visual. They're very habituated to cars, but my voice, I highly doubt it. I think they're probably used to humans talking, that sort of pitch that they can hear. I mean, the human vocal range will sound very different if you're a hyena than it will if you are human. But I don't think they recognize my voice. Cars, on the other hand, I think they do. Because they rely so heavily on their nose, so heavily on their sense of smell. I wouldn't be surprised if they recognized individual cars through scent. Oh, that was a lovely yawn. This is a perfect end to the drive for me, considering it is the last drive of the year. Can you believe it? We've made it to the last drive of the year. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Now, I've been here the past few days, as you know, and I haven't seen June. But we did see Corky last night with her little one, with her daughter, and that was great news. So I think they all come and go from the den as they please. They avoid the hot days. They become more nocturnal. There's a bit of a daily shift. And otherwise, they just come and go as they please. They maybe come up at 3 in the morning and go away by 4. But with the heat we're experiencing right now, that's why we're not seeing them so much. It just gets too hot too early, and they'll wait till it cools down. But we saw Ribbon this morning heading into Little Gowrie, and I really hope she manages to get a meal. Any sort of meal. Okay, so we're going to sit at the den as long as we can, as long as Indabelle is here. And we're going to send you across to JP and his giraffe.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Tswalu. We're currently sitting with a giraffe bull, as you can see, with little horns on top of a head, which is bald. So at the moment it looks very awkward because we're only seeing a small piece of a hair, the neck sticking out below a low shrub. It is actually lying down. This is not a behavior that you quite often see with giraffe, and they only seem to perform this when they're 100% sure that there's no predators within the area. Quite often you'll see a number of them doing it, and most of the time they will all be looking in different directions. So recently I was also asked if giraffe do lie down. Yes, the answer is yes. They sometimes do. However, this is normally young individuals that do that. So what is the length of it? Mm-hmm. One of the things that I find particularly fascinating about the neck is that it's got a very long ligament that runs from the head towards the shoulders. So one would actually think if a giraffe actually has to bring its head up, that is where it would take the stress. However, the stress on the ligament is when it actually does bring its head down. We also find that giraffe has got an equal amount of vertebra in their neck as that we have and all other animals have, or mammals have, and that's a total of 7. On top of that, they've also got a very unique configuration of an atlas and axis vertebra, enabling them to tilt their heads at a 90-degree angle. Good afternoon, Senzi, and welcome to the show. They carry for almost 15 months, that equates to 457 days, making it the ruminant, an animal that rechews its cud with the longest gestation period. I also find it quite fascinating about the process, how they give birth. Females will be standing in an upright position when giving birth, and they drop the young at approximately 1.5 meters in height. This enables the umbilical cord to be snapped and also triggers the young animal to take its first breath. When we do look at ossicones, the horn-like structures that we find in the head, those aren't fused to the head in young animals. It only becomes fused much later on, and this is to prevent that it can potentially stab into the skull of a young animal, or alternatively it would also be in the way of giving birth when it has to exit. Our bull has decided that it's time to get up, and it seems as if he's going to move on. Good afternoon, Annie, and welcome to the show. When they are born, they are approximately 1.4 meters, 1.5 meters in height, precisely the same height as which the adders are, so that they can drink.
Sorry about that. I'm sure Swallow will be right back with us. Now, Indabelli's having a very good groom. The cubs have explored the car, and I think they're done with it now. It's no longer that exciting. And it's all very quiet at the den. Now, Indabelli, you may think, looks like Swazi. She does. And Swazi's twin. Swazi's sister. The offspring of Pretty. Pretty was a very high-ranked female who was really pretty, and unfortunately she's no longer with us. She was a large female, and we saw her quite close to the end, and she was not in a good way, I'm afraid. But Indabelli and Swazi have just thrived and survived, and Johan and I had a fantastic sighting with the two of them hunting. On quarantine, they were hunting a wildebeest calf. She smells something. It's probably me after a day like today. But she's still got her perfect ears. Where she sits in the clan, I'm not quite sure. She's still one of the younger females, but I have seen her being dominated. She was born in 2018, so she's over 2 now, so she's still a sub-adult, but she does get dominated by Hart and Intima a lot. I haven't seen Ribbon do it. Kimberly, no, it's all unique. Completely unique to each individual. They have it from a youngster, from birth, and it remains the same in each individual all the way through to adulthood. It's completely unique, and that's how we actually identify them. Now, if they've got a sort of unique ear like Ribbon, or a floppy ear like June, of course, they're very easy to identify. But other than that, we use a spot pattern. And it's not easy. I sometimes get it wrong. Sometimes you've got to double take your hyenas. But generally speaking, we use a spot pattern on either side of the rib cage. Now, if she leaves here, unfortunately, we will also have to leave. I don't see any signs of an adult or any other adult. But I will check around before we leave, because I would really like to spend more time at the den. Now, we saw Andrew actually saw Hart with her pair on the road the other day. So she's taking them, she's mobile with them. I think Interbelly's walking off here. So it's time for us to leave, little ones. We will see you next year. They are all just in front of the car, but before they come wandering, we are going to make sure that we leave. We might see an adult on the way, but I'm not so sure. It's never a tricky place to reverse out from. Bear with me. Okay, I'm going to navigate my way out of here, and we're going to send you across to Andrew.
Thanks, Lauren. So everyone, as you can see now, we started to work on the spotlight. Using spotlight, it will actually work better for us. Assist checking around as is the dark is taking places. And we're able now to rely on a spotlight. Wherever the beam of a spotlight goes and our eyes is there. So if there is anything, we'll see, or usually it's a rise to reflect back, then we know there is something. There's a difference from cats or nocturnal individual. Their eyes are different to diurnal animals. So that's how we're gonna work around. Hopefully, we come across our Kalamba still crossing the road or still moving along these roads. If she's still around, hasn't gone back south again, where we checked the boundary. There's quite a lot of cars been driving in there during the day. So we're checking in case she didn't cross back south again. That means that she's probably still around here. So more likely later to work around Gary Dam side, because if she in here, then she might probably push further north to close to Gary Dam on that side. And that's where we're going to be looking. But anything we're going to find, have a lot of actually night animal that out about at night, moving around. Galagos, those type of bush babies. Another one that moves at night, and the owls. Vicky, you're asking if I'm afraid of driving at night. So no, I'm not afraid. Actually, I love it so much, and it actually can be scary if he got maybe broke down, but that's not what luckily happening. So we still get around well, got a spotlight to shine around. So it's cool actually, I love it. Night drive, it's always so important because then it's different to a day drive. You're able to see a night animal if they're out about. So I'm gonna continue now, search around here. I'm gonna be sending you to JP with this bird.
Good afternoon and welcome back. we at Tshwalu, we just located on a common scimitar bull, which is one of my favorite birds. So if we look at the common scimitar bull, it's got a fairly long, decurved bull, a bull that is pointing downwards. And this little bull is quite interesting. It is designed for probing for insects. And what we also find is that they've got very specialized cells at the tip of the bull, which can distinguish between edible and non-edible particles when they do probe for food. Quite often, this bird is confused for another bird that's known as a green hudupu, who has got all red legs and a red bull, where the common scimitar bull has got black legs and a black bull. They're also much smaller, and they tend to be only found in groups of 2 or 3, maybe maximum, compared to the woodhupus, which sometimes will form groups of 6 to 12. What I do find quite interesting about this group of birds, which includes the scimitar bulls, the woodhupus, and the hupu, is that they have a special relationship with a bacteria which lives in their preen gland. And this creates an obnoxious smelling chemical which is used as a defensive weapon against potential threats that would like to harass them. They also fell their little ones so that they can stink and that they are unpalatable. Therefore, they are overlooked by predators. Unfortunately, our bird has just flown off. In the meanwhile, we're going to take a small little drive and see if we can position somewhere on one of the beautiful dunes so that we can go and enjoy a sunset. There's no signal.
Sorry about that. Right, so we're still on search. It's actually some of the 2 grass cut road over here. Can't be clearly to see what has been, what has walked in, because the key now is actually not only to find the animal, but it's to find the tracks. So even at night, you wish to find the tracks, then you know what you're doing. Where a lot of time, what we come across is that you do find animal without seeing the tracks. This is when they just appear on the road from anywhere, or it happens you just miss the tracks, and then they were not far away from that. So there is a chance to spot animals straight away without seeing any tracks. But you find a track, it's a key. It's how you find them. And it always says that the minute you miss the tracks, you miss the sighting, you miss that animal. But the spotlight doesn't actually miss much. As long as you keep your eyes in the beam of the spotlight and whatever blink the eyes for a distance, you're able to pick it up. Actually, I haven't seen so many of you want to know what is my favorite memory as a guide. So, well, at some point happens a while ago that actually that was unforgettable for me, because I don't think it was nice though, but it's something that I won't forget. You know, this is kind of a stalking situation we were just talking about. It happens, but then at night, and there was heavily pouring rain, where all river was flooded and no roads. It happens when that rain starts, we were actually on game drive, and we didn't notice it's gonna hammer too much. And we stuck just before the camp where Now all signals down, all comms are down. Can't reach the camp for help. Now I have to, nobody can help us, otherwise he has to sleep there in the pouring rain with a guest. Then I have to walk from the camp, from that position of a stocking area to the camp, where it was like 4 kilometers at night, pitch dark. I don't have a spotlight or light. The rifle that I have to leave it with my tracker there, so because he's the one with the guest. And then I walk back to the camp. But I've arrived safely. And then going back there again, this is where everybody know, oh, Andrew's got a problem. So it was nobody's actually fault then, because it was a failure of comms that was not working due to the rain. So everything was down. Electricity was down. So, and it was actually the only thing that I worried about was the herd of elephants. If you ever run to them, then you don't know. They'll feel provoked, chance that you may get killed. So that was actually my memory out in the bush that I won't forget. But it was just over. But when now I started to think of what could happen what would happen if I would walk into immediately of elephants. I wouldn't mind lions or leopards, rhinos, that I wouldn't mind. But a herd of elephants with their baby, then you should worry about them. So I'm gonna carry on. This doesn't actually scare you guys, everyone, so it's all just gone.
Have you been watching Wild Earth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. Wild Earth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live Wild Earth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply.
We've seen these ellies really chase wild dogs before. Let's get into spot. There we go, here it comes. Look at that, isn't that amazing?
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
This is Rusty. He's my favorite vehicle, and we've been through all the good times here in the bush. Now, if you feel a connection to Djuma Game Reserve like I do, then we have a fantastic opportunity for you. You can have your name engraved on a brushed metal plaque, just like this one, and we will attach it to Rusty so you can always be with us on safari in spirit. We will even send you a digital photograph once your plaque is mounted on Rusty. Spaces are limited, so grab your spot now.
My name is Taylor McCurdy, and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced, and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on Wild Earth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Tswalu. We're about a few minutes away before the sun sets on the horizon. And as you probably heard me saying before, the Kalahari has probably got some of the most beautiful of sunsets. A lot to do with a lot of dust in the air, the way that light filters through the angle from the atmosphere, and also the flat curvature of the Earth, which provides such beautiful sunsets. We're going to provide a few moments of silence so that you can just enjoy the sounds of nature and the beautiful sunsets which you can experience over the Kalahari. Good afternoon, David, and welcome to the show. Yes, the golden hour is probably one of my favorite times of day in terms of photography, but it's just always beautiful, even to see animals in the golden light and the golden reflection that they often will create around their silhouettes. So quite often when I do photograph animals, it tends to always be in direct late sunlight during the golden hour. I just love the silhouettes that these golden glows around the animals provide. And secondly, I love sunrises and sunsets. They're the most special time of the day for me. Good evening, Mandla. You 100% will never ever disappoint. Good afternoon or good evening, Lisa. Yes, we do. So it depends on the time of the year and what we are looking for. So most of the nocturnal species that we do find, such as Cape fox, bat-eared fox, aardwolf, brown hyena, they tend to be active in the cooler parts of the day. The same with aardvark and pangolin. However, in the summer months, we have to stay out very, very late or get up very, very early in the morning, as they're only active around about 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the morning. In terms of lion and leopard, lion is way more regularly seen and can be seen in both day as well as night. With leopard, they're a little bit more scarce, and we every now and then will see one, and it's mostly always at night time when we do find them in this area. That's quite interesting when it comes to leopard, that they will, in some areas where they have no potential threats and where there's no human impact on them, they will actually hunt during the daytime and be more day active. However, in areas where they are disturbed by other potential predators, they tend to be more night active in their behavior. Some species, such as spring hare, they will only become active once it's really dark, and you also very seldom will see them when it's a full moon night. Good afternoon, Amber, and welcome to the show. That's a very long question to answer. It basically goes down to it that I used to quite often walk away from home and go and hitchhike all over South Africa. I then learned that I actually like sharing knowledge with people. As that my knowledge grew, people would often ask me questions if they give me a ride or if they meet me in a hostel or a backpacker. And very soon people actually asked me, "Don't you mind to take us there? We will pay you." And then from there I decided to become a guide. But I also do it because I'm passionate about nature, I'm passionate about the environment, and I'm also passionate about sharing my knowledge and the beauty of our wonderful natural environment with guests. In the meanwhile, we're going to watch the sunset a little bit longer, but we're going to hand you over to Andrew, that is now still looking for some nocturnal animals.
Thanks, JP. We're still on search. I haven't actually come across anything that we actually call it a nocturnal right now. So we're coming down to Gary Dam because we checked few roads there and there's no luck. So we're just gonna see what is in the dam here, what could be drinking this time of evening. Where if the lumber it happens that she may make her way this far, then it means that she have moved so much during the day. If she then hasn't yet, it's probably because she had delayed. Maybe she has a kill somewhere nobody know about, which that happened. They spend a lot of times. Whenever they kill something, they would spend a lot of time to finish whatever it is. Take their own time, digest, they go again, feed. So you find a whole impala at the end of the day, it's all eaten, finished, without sharing or anything, because they don't actually share. They're not in group. Stop here, Gary Dam. Listen to anything that could be around here. Luras. Which I don't see anything. Only here, all bubbling casino, the frogs. Check the western end of the dam wall. Because that's where sometimes it's easy for all animals to exist in and out. That. Okay, so you want to know what animals usually at the dam at night. You know, mainly water birds, those type of birds. And animals in generally that don't actually physically spend a lot of time near the water at all. It seems to just come and drink and move off. But those dogs, those are all of Egyptian geese is old, comb duck as well. Those are the ones that they spend a lot of time on the edge of the water. And those hippos, if there isn't a hippo, they would be out about now, just for feeding, until they return back. So dusk and dawn, it's everybody's favorite to come and drink. So I'm gonna carry on. While I'm doing that, I'm going to be sending you to JP with his sunset.
Good evening and welcome back again to Tswalu. The sun is just about to hit the horizon. We're going to allow for a few minutes of silence just to enjoy and soak up that beautiful sunset before we enter our next year by tomorrow morning for next sunrise. It's almost about to set. We're just going to enjoy watching that for a little bit longer. I'm personally very grateful that I could witness such a beautiful sunset as my last sunset for 2020. And I'm really looking forward to tomorrow morning's first sunrise and to go and see what we can go and find out there. Every morning has a new opportunity, and you never know what you're going to find, which is one of the things that makes guiding incredibly interesting for me. Oh, how beautiful is that? I would like to say thank you very much to all the viewers for joining us with Wild Earth through the 2020 year. I would also like to wish you a happy new year and everything to the best for 2021. We'll be live again from tomorrow morning at 5:30 Central African time. Looking forward to see you again.